Oh, written in the stars, a million miles away, a message to the main. Oh, competitive seasons come and go, but we will never change, and we're on our way. Yeah. It sounded better in my head when I practiced it.
I love that you practiced it as well. That's brilliant. Did you have that written down or was that memorized?
That was memorized.
Oh
I
my
just
gosh.
I gave it a
That's even
quiet
more
rehearsal in the
impressive.
shower, and that was it.
Oh, I would, yeah, I just, I feel like I need an applause. Like if there was some sort of button I could press and it was like, "Dut, dut, dut."
Yeah, good effort.
You're not going to get me singing anytime soon, guys. It's not happening. That was Mike Chalice, everyone. You're
Yeah,
soon going to find physio, coach, athlete, natural bodybuilder, singer,
that's,
songwriter.
that's it. That's it. Just add it, add it to the Instagram profile resume.
You might as well. Once you've sung one song, you're basically a singer now. It's like if you've done one comp prep, you're an online coach, right?
Exactly. Yeah, if you see me popping up on, the RP jingle, whatever, who knows? Could be a man in
TikTok.
demand.
You have a TikTok account, don't you, where you just sing jingles? And I haven't seen it because I'm not on TikTok.
It will just have like the profile picture will be just like my butt tattoo.
By the way, who actually sings the song? I recognize the song, but I don't know who sings that.
It
Like the band,
was.
or
I don't
it's not
know.
like
I know
Robbie
it's
Williams or something.
no, it's like Tinchy Strider and something. Ah,
You
anyway, yeah.
copyright notice. We're gonna get copyright notice on this one. We're not gonna be able to be monetized.
I don't
But
think my singing's that good, to be fair.
oh yeah, we'll see. Uh, we should probably just dive right into the kind of weekly news, right? Because I have no idea how long this segment might take. Because I think we might as well try and review as much of the WNBF UK that we can, because we're both there. And you
Mhm.
actually judged, I think you shadow judged like 4 different classes, right?
Yeah, because there were 3 sections, and I judged 2 classes in each section.
Nice. So 6. That's
Yeah.
cool. And yeah, obviously I judged all classes but 3, I think. It maybe even have been 2. So I was pretty much judging everything, which didn't feel overwhelming actually. It was but I just want to start off by saying it was the best to date show I've been part of. I'm not necessarily referring to the quality of competitors because they've always been really high, if I'm honest. But the kind of you guys backstage, the running of everything. I know you were bringing on the prizes, taking off, helping the guys off with the prizes. Like the expediters, essentially, is what you were kind of performing there. Was brilliant. Steph running the mic, and everyone, the whole team, would just did a fantastic job of just running the show. And I like the venue too. It's the first time I've been at the Grove Theatre in Luton. Well, Dunstable, basically, not really Luton, and probably better that way, to be honest. No offense to any Lutoners out there, you probably agree with me though. And yeah, it was a nice venue. It was very spacious, very open. There were some great sponsors there, like Pit Stop Nutrition were there, and those sort of things. So that was great. But we actually finished exactly on time. I think pretty much it's finished at 7:30, right? We started even a little late, which is to some extent, I don't know, I don't want to say it's inevitable, but these things happen, right? Shows are never perfect in terms of running times, but we caught it back up and everything was delivered on time. And I think Steph should be super proud. I think she is, and she knows that she should be. But yeah, anyone who was part of that show, I think I haven't heard anyone with any kind of critical feedback in that sense. I was just trying to think, is there anything I'd be critical of? I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Only kind of very minor, uh, like judging things with sheets and bits and pieces like that I think are going to improve because it's just some of the, what's it called, red tape that is involved at the moment with that sort of thing. And I know Steph's on it, so it's not going to be a problem. And it wasn't a problem, to be honest. It just would have made things a bit more efficient in the morning, I think, for some of us, but not a big deal. But yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling now, Mike. Any comments?
No. Yeah, I just totally reiterate. It was great actually because I remember we started a little bit late, and like all of us backstage were really surprised because like, oh, we're actually, because we made the break on time. So when the first section finished, we were like, oh, we're on time. Like we did really well. And the great thing is that we made up time without sacrificing, anybody's stage time or, the experience of any of the competitors. It wasn't like we cut that short. So I think it, again, like you said, it just, is a credit to, the diligence that Steph and Stu and all those people put into the processes and making it just super efficient. I know that was like one of their top priorities in terms of, being efficient, and having a really slick process. And I think they absolutely nailed that to a T, which is so cool. And yeah, everything just, I think, like you said, in terms of how well run it is, the quality, it was just awesome. It was really cool as well because they had like computer screens like at the back and stuff,
Yeah,
and
the
just
LED screen.
yeah. So it's just really exciting. It is really, really super exciting.
Yeah, they leveled up on every front. Like the marketing is really good. The PCA are known for their kind of killer uploads of like individual routines and posing on stage, and the WNBF are like bringing that same level of quality, which is awesome.
Mm.
And yeah, obviously we have show shoots at the show as well, and he captures the best photos, so that's super important. So, but at the same time, it's important for the competitors to know that there's going to be a semi structured schedule to stick to, and that they can get home on time, and their loved ones and family can expect to be able to see their loved one on stage at a certain time. So yeah, I think it's inevitable. Like with anything, like there's only what 2 opportunities a year to try and nail it. So it's like just you have to be on point. Otherwise, like yeah, there's going to be some small mistakes. So there's not like multiple shows to try and level up every time. So yeah, it just takes a while to kind of get it smooth, as you mentioned, and functioning as it was. But I think we've probably spoken enough about that, and
Yeah.
people probably care more about seeing some of the talent that was
Mm.
on stage. So we can, yeah, bring up. Let me see if I can do this. Share my screen and
Do you
bring
know
up
what?
the
Just as
WNBF
you're
UK.
as you're getting into it, Steve, I think something which I had to always keep reminding myself on, because sometimes there was and I think you always get this with shows, but I think there's sometimes a disparity between, some competitors who come out of nowhere and they're just like, oh my goodness, who are these guys? They're just in unbelievable shape. And then there might be others where, maybe they don't bring the same level. And I think you've just got to keep reminding yourself that this show is all about being first timer and a novice. And I think you might think like, oh, that isn't, I don't know, pro standard, or that isn't to the caliber. And it's like, oh, hey, we've got to a certain degree, paint a brush of these are all people who've technically either never competed before or never placed, I think, top three or something of that nature.
If I was making any faces, Mike, it's not anything you're saying. Ada is right by me, and she is making a storm. She is just fighting herself into oblivion. She's not been well though, so I can't really blame her. So here I have people who are watching, people who are listening. We'll try and do our best to kind of describe everything, but this might be a better episode to watch on YouTube. I have WNBF UK Instagram up, and they have interviews, which is super cool, with all the winners here. So you can obviously click into that, hear the people's like background and journey and everything. They have some individual like posing routines and just like, hey, some like pose offs and everything like that. I don't think at the moment there's any like just like this is was the class winner of this one, this was the class winner of this one, so on and so forth. Apart from obviously the interviews. So I think probably we're going to have to skip towards just the photos of the overalls, but that might even be enough to go by. I don't know what you think, Mike. They
Yeah.
have some of
I
the
mean,
winners here that they're just getting through, so we can kind of cover some of those.
I think starting somewhere near the top of, with the winners, top three, I think that sounds good.
Cool. So might as well start off with Mikey. So Mikey won the overall, and obviously won the open bodybuilding lightweight as well, which is pretty cool to see a lightweight then win the overall in some instances, because it just has to be a high quality lightweight competitor to be able to do that, because they're inevitably going to be smaller in terms of
Mm.
just muscularity than the rest of the competitors. But there was only a lightweight and heavyweight, right? There was no middleweight. So it's just how the weights ended up going, and the number of people that were competing in it. So, yeah, any comments on Mikey here?
I guess the main thing is just the impressive amount of muscle mass that he's carrying, just top to bottom. I can't remember, I don't know how old he is, but I don't think he's very old at all. Is he is
I
he
got
over
no idea.
23?
I was wondering if he had it in his bio, but I can't see. There'll be someone who knows. But yeah, I don't get the impression he's particularly old. He looks young in the face, but yeah, it's hard to know, isn't it?
But yeah, I think standout is just like, really impressive amount of muscle mass, really impressive symmetry. Um, yeah, just well proportioned, small waist, big arms, massive quads, good calves, just really leveling out kind of that X frame. So yeah, not surprising that he won, given his symmetry, given his condition, muscle mass, very well, just had all of those elements well balanced together, I would have said.
It's funny you said like well balanced immediately, because my first thought was huge quads out of proportion to the rest of the physique. Not to take away from
Oh
anything you said or take away from him, but his quads are stand out. Like
yeah.
they're not balanced to the rest of the physique. They are like ahead of the rest of the physique, but not by an amount. And the rest of the physique carry was sufficient for that not to hinder him. It wasn't like he was all legs and nothing else by any means. It was a really, really tight overall. Were you watching it, Mike, or were you behind the scenes?
I was watching it, but I couldn't really see properly because I was so side on.
I would have loved for like a video or some images of the overall, because there was, for example, the classic winner here, which is Sean. He was like very good as well. Like he would be a great lightweight bodybuilding competitor as well. But his posing was very, very classic. You can even see it here. He has this tiny waist, sweeping quads,
Mm,
broad shoulders. But Mikey here, I think, for example, just versus Sean there, edged him on like that gnarly condition and just overall like bodybuilding mass, as
mm,
opposed to like flowing lines as such. I think it's great that Mikey did open and didn't do the classic, because I would say he is better suited as a open bodybuilder versus classic. That's one of the things, right? But yeah, you can see here conditioned through the hamstrings, glutes were like they're not as in as they maybe can be in future. I think he's got more shows. He might do the same supernaturals. I encourage him to do so. I guess it's quite a large amount of time between them, but he's coached by Finn, so we know he'll be doing some smart moves. But yeah, as you can see, like very well conditioned, but heaps of fullness within the physique as well, which is great. Obviously, I don't know when this is even from. I'm not assessing his stage shots, which is a bit unfair, I guess. Here are some stage shots for people to have a look at. But the what was gnarly is, I think, not that it can pick it up here. It's his quads were feathered, sorry, through here, which is impressive, like the VL and the
mm.
teardrop there. And then like he had detail through the lower back, the glutes, and heaps, again, like I say, heaps of fullness, big calves. There's nothing holding him back. And yeah, heaps of potential to move forward. I was going to say his chest fully through, really, really nice physique. And I also want to mention just he fucking loved it. Like you see the smile on his face. He was just like having the time of his life up there, and that is just so nice to see. I think he cried on stage as well, which is great. Just shows the passion and the love for it. So yeah, these guys, it was cool to see. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say on Mikey there.
No, it's just great. Yeah, it was really cool celebrations, like you said. He was just absolutely over the moon, and Finn also was, delighted. They kind of like embraced and hugged and stuff. And I know Finn was also really nervous as well before they announced. So yeah, it was really cool.
As I say, it was tight. I know, for example, someone who was also in the mix was the not was it the first timers? So Rudolph, he was very good as well. So he was, oh sorry, bodybuilding junior winner. Yeah, okay, that's not his Instagram, maybe, or it's not letting me go to it. Has he blocked me? No, I think they've probably just not tagged him correctly, right? Anyway, oh, I really want to get him up because he was. Let me see if I can search for him. Bear with me, guys, because he was very good. Do you remember him?
I do. Yep.
Yeah, so he just wasn't as conditioned. And also, guys, posing is super important, and hitting the pose as well is important, but being able to, there we go, I think this is him, isn't it? Being able to maintain those poses for an extended period of time is also important. And he did dwindle a little bit. He got fatigued, which is fair enough. He was on very early in the day too. But you can see just from this shot, right? Look at that symmetry. Look at that shape.
Mm,
Super broad shoulders, tiny waist, sweeping quads. Like his quads, there's some guys with incredible quads on stage. Let's put it that way in
yeah.
this overall.
There's some big legs in
And
that show.
yeah, I don't know if there's not too much I can show you from him, but he was very, very good. And then I also want to highlight, just because bodybuilding's obviously the one I know the most on, and I can just remember the physiques. If I can find him, uh, he was the classic heavyweight champion. This guy also battling for it. Very,
I
very
remember.
good. So Tyvan Brown, credible competitor. I think he did very well at the UKFBA not long ago. So here, well, time to beat this look. But yeah, just the shape on this guy.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm
Like,
talking too much. You can say something.
no, no. I mean, just like tiny waist and like X frame. Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he posed well as well.
I was glad you brought up posing. He posed really well. His posing routine was super cool. 25 years
Mm.
old. Absolutely wild. Yeah, so much potential on him. And again, he was just, I think it's always challenging in the overall when there's several people of a similar height challenging. It's easy for someone who's like quite different to that to fall out of favor, if that makes sense. But he just didn't quite have the condition and sharpness of Mikey, for example. But yeah, absolutely wild physique. Totally. This was his posing routine. But people can kind of take a look. But yeah, it's like very slick. But I love it because
Mm.
he was hitting the classic poses, but very well for his physique. It wasn't, some people try and hit the classic pose and it just doesn't quite suit their physique and it's just a little bit off. But he was actually nailing it. So that was very cool to see. Right. Should we move on to the classic winner?
Yeah.
So this first time classic, right?
Which is crazy, right?
No, I mean,
Like,
as in,
oh,
it was the
sorry.
first time we're doing classic.
Yes, yes. First time we were doing classic, and I thought it went really well. Yeah, I thought it was a great class, great addition to the show. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great to see some people really take it seriously as classic, and he was someone who did. His posing was fantastic
Mm.
and very fluid, transitioning through the shots. I don't know if he's going to hit some here, but you can already see like the shape on him's like superb. I think he was at the London posing workshop with the WNBF.
Mhm.
Josh was telling me, one of the other judges. So yeah, just had so much support. I knew there was tons of people in the crowd. Look,
Hmm.
and I knew he was like looking at them all like dead in the eye. But you can see here, very similar to Mikey in some ways, like big quads, good broad shoulders, similar height, but Mikey just that bit sharper for bodybuilding, right? And that density to the muscle. So that kind of had him ahead of him there. But very, very good competitor. And yeah, have you got anything else you want to say about Classic as a
I
class?
guess I, on a similar note, I was really impressed with just a couple of guys in that classic class. Again, it was just really nice to see, like you said, people taking their posing seriously. Like there was just a couple of competitors where they were just posing really well, really classically, and it was just really cool to see. So yeah, I just really liked that.
I'm trying to think. So I think this was no, okay. I was going to say it's classic. These are some classic shots. So obviously the slightly bigger board shorts, type posing trunks, and like he's hitting this very classic, very upright, like showing off the chest there, and obviously he's not quite doing the classic variation that's stipulated in the kind of judging criteria. But I know Steph said she's got a lot of like leeway on that, and you'd be called out if anything was off. By the way, I think that's a Berserk tattoo for anyone who watches Berserk. Props to this guy. It's an anime, Mike, if you haven't heard of Berserk. Anyway, so yeah, some cool shots from this fella here. She don't know who this is, but it drew in the numbers, which was great to see. But I still feel like the open bodybuilding classes, there was still plenty of people in those.
Mm.
But I also do think people are going to learn quickly whether or not they're classic. As in, there were people in that class who just, they weren't classic, and they were much better as like open bodybuilders. I can't think of anyone specifically off the top of my head just now, but there were people like that. Here you go. Here's a good like lineup of some of the. Is this the heavy
Yeah,
novice
this is
classic
the
physique?
heavyweight.
So yeah, 5th place for Finn's client here, back, who was very classic, by the way. He did great. Look at this guy. But there's a good example of classic, right? Super broad shoulders, tiny waist, sweeping quads, and he was very classic in terms of like how he hit poses too. Like he was very fluid. I really liked Jack actually. With a bit more mass on his frame, he'll be contending for top spots, no doubt. But yeah, we can get to. I think the next one is Bikini.
Ah, and I mean the bikini winner who won the overall, like I thought she was incredible. Great delts, just like really like a good amount of muscularity and tone, but that was really suitable and appropriate for bikini. Yeah, I thought she was, yeah, quite standout.
She absolutely was. She was a very good, like quintessential bikini. I'm just bringing up one of the
Mm,
judges, Stuart, because he took a great photo of her. Here you go. Just really, really nicely proportioned. Like you said, she had that tight waist. She had really good condition without being too conditioned. She was as conditioned as you'd want to be, I would say, for bikini. Nice, like, definition through the shoulders, very broad here. Nice, like, long legs, long limbs, posed very well. She was very, I think, like you said, she was standout for
mm,
sure. And yeah, it's similar to a lot of these overall winners. Hard to find criticisms in their physique, and it just goes to show how high quality the caliber of athlete was that was coming to stage. And like you can see here, like not like crazy sharp, but amply conditioned to show off a bit of detail through the abs, through the calf, through the legs. Well, we haven't got any rear shots, but they're incredibly important in bikini, of course. Going to
mm,
show that glute ham kind of tie in and
yeah.
detailing through there, but well proportioned back and a very proportioned athlete as well. That's something some of the women I think struggle with, Mike, is knowing which category they're suited to. And it's just there's people in bikini that may be over muscled for it, or over conditioned, and we help them work that out. But especially as a first timer, sometimes it's hard to know.
Mm,
So
uh,
let's go on to this guy, unless you had anything more on that.
nope.
So we
So I
have, go on, mate.
Yeah, who? I was just gonna say I didn't get a chance to get a look at this guy a lot, but from the glimpses that I got, I was like, again, like really drew your eye, and you thought, this guy could do well, and he did.
Yeah, he was very good. I had him winning the overall before the overall happened, just because if anyone was going to be better than him, I was like, my mind would have just been blown because he is close to a pro standard. Obviously, it was his like first show, or one of his first shows. To have gone pro there would maybe not be the right thing. It kind of depends how you look at it, but just look at him here, just
Mm.
stood, just absolutely wild. He reminded me of Kojo.
Yes, I was gonna say the same thing.
So for those who know, Kojo, who did similar actually, didn't he win the first timers? Yeah, the novice championships in 2024. Very, very similar kind of physique, just like a smaller Kojo, not like just because he's shorter and like condensed, right? Not like
Mm,
he's like under muscled or anything, but yeah, Kojo's obviously absolutely ginormous and tremendous competitor, but reminded me of him. But the photos aren't quite doing him justice here.
mm,
I think he was like very conditioned, but well conditioned. Had like his, as you can see here, his shorts are fitted to the legs. They're not like baggy
yeah.
and falling off him. They're an appropriate length. He has calf development. He has leg development. Obviously, there's still things we look at. Waist was just absolutely tiny waist. I wish I could find some more images, but you can kind of see him here. Oh, it looks like he trains. That looks like muscle works in Bethnal Green.
Mm,
So yeah, he's a London boy maybe. But yeah, you can just see how small his waist is. But he's got those thick abdominals with that tiny waist, sweeping lats, broad shoulders, cap delts, big thick chest. In fact, there was some crazy chests throughout the men's physique guys, and yeah, just very well balanced across the physique as well. And he posed. He brought it together with the posing too. So, yeah, it's he hasn't got enough. His profile here doesn't do him justice of how good a physique he has, because he was, for me, one of the standouts from the day. To be honest, he might be the standout from the day for me. Right.
I would say in general that I think some of these pictures don't maybe convey as much like how good in person. I think these guys look better in person to a degree. You know, these photos are awesome, but still, like from what I remember, you know, being there live on the day, I was like, "Oh, these guys are
This is a bit
crazy."
better. You get
Yeah,
a bit
that's
of an
good.
idea. But again, in person, even more impressive. Yeah, there's just no holes in his physique, right? And he's just
Yeah.
showing it off so well.
And I think not, um, you mentioned about the shorts. It was actually a rarity to see the competitors with well-fitting shorts. I think that was something that kind of stood out. I think there was a lot of, again, just maybe disparity with some people not wearing the right fitting shorts.
Here we go. You get a bit of an idea. Like here,
Yeah.
these one like this guy, number 70. I know he actually did very well in men's physique. He had a great physique, but his were almost like compression shorts almost. I don't know if they're
Mm,
too much. They're very, see how high up they are on the leg. These ones, like, yeah, too many of them I think were loose. That was the biggest problem with the class, like very loose.
mm.
And it just throws off the physique. It's surprising how much it can throw off the physique. So it's
Yeah.
just something to be aware of, guys. If you are doing whatever category you're in, males, females, and that was some global feedback I had for the men's physique guys. Was actually, this is a good example of people with well-fitting shorts,
Mm,
but it's important. It's like here again, they're loose. I know they're, I think, a branded, like they're men's physique, like you buy them for it, but you need to make sure they're kind of fitting you well, or you need to fill them out. For example, this, I actually gave some feedback to this competitor or his coach, and yeah, just the shorts you can see too loose, right, Mike?
yeah, completely.
But he was very good. He was challenging for spots, no doubt about it. And then same for the other global feedback I had for the men was their posing trunks. I don't know if I can see it in any of these, but
Yeah, that
here
one
where
straight
they,
in the middle.
yeah, this is a good example of how you want it. So it's emphasizing the taper. Uh, yeah, you want to avoid, yeah, having them. I feel bad because this is the same guy with the men's physique shorts, but yeah, here again, it's not. I'm not singling anyone out here. It's just little things you can do to level yourself up, basically.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, it's exciting because if you're challenging for places, those small little things can just, again, they can bring you up a couple of notches. And then before you know it, without actually doing anything, like needing to, you know, get leaner or whatever, it's like, hey, you've immediately gone up a couple of placings, which is awesome.
I was going to say here, like everyone's got them in the right place, right? Oh,
Mm,
actually, the guy, the guy that
bit
won,
low.
they're a little bit low. You can
That,
get them up on your hip there. This guy was also very good. And I don't know what class this is. I don't actually know who this is. Oh no, it's not the same competitor, but yeah, just there's a lot of good competitors. But this is a good example of how to wear them. Like, hey, there you
mm,
go. He could actually even have them a bit higher, to be honest.
yeah. They're kind of, you almost want them slightly above your iliac crests. So
Yeah,
like
just above
where
the
you,
hip bone, right?
yeah, exactly.
Then figure.
Mm, yeah. And again,
Sarah Holson, who won the overall there. A lot of these women, they got their profiles. We need to see your physique. It's fine. So I don't. I think I saw many additional tags of the figure class. Any comments, Mike?
no, I didn't actually get to see a lot of her, but again, like things with figure is like, you know, the symmetry, she, again, good shoulders, well proportioned, you know, I thought, yeah, solid figure competitor.
I think there were some very good figure competitors. She just fit the class the best. There was
Mm,
definitely people challenging her for placings and for spots, but with good amounts of muscle. But she brought the kind of symmetry on the physique, and that's what we end up. That's what we do at the WNBF. We don't just reward the biggest. We don't just reward the most shredded. We reward the person that hits on the criteria the best, essentially. So here's some examples of some of the figure. Is that figure?
that's fit body, I think.
Fit body, yeah, it's a fit body class. Yeah, there's not many images from those classes, which is unfortunate. But I know the WNBF will they'll start publishing these ones, and on their website they'll start having kind of some more of the images there. But yeah, with the figure, no, that's bikini. We don't have any more figures here, but yeah, I thought she was very good.
Yeah.
Like you said, good amount of condition, very good muscularity, nice broad through the shoulders, cat delts, not like striations or like crazy muscle separation that you're looking for in fit body or in a bodybuilding class. But yeah, very X-framey. Like you just see how
Yeah.
broad she is and how narrow through the waist she is there. Posed very, very well. Fantastic look from her.
I think that's again another thing with again bikini and figure. It's like there is a certain element of posing and grace which is specific to those classes, and if you do that right, it goes a long way.
For sure. Yeah, so you can see all the overall winners here. And if people want
Mm.
to find out more, I guess, they can check out the WNBF UK page.
Yeah,
Yeah, even
I
here was
sorry.
the female bodybuilding. Unfortunately, only two in the class.
Yeah, this lady also competed in fit body as well.
That might have been one I wasn't judging, you know. I'm pretty sure it was one I wasn't judging because there was someone I saw. Actually, quite a few of the women did several classes, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't. She definitely did fit body as well.
Yeah. There was, this was a good, what was she in here? So this is novice bikini again, but she did figure as well.
Mm.
So, but you had a lot of the guys also doing classic, open, they're doing men's physique. And I think my personal thought on that is you're novice or first timer, right? Here she is doing, here she is doing the figure. But
Is that a different
when you're,
lady?
no, sorry, it's going to come to her.
That one. Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, when you're doing first timers or novice, you're at the start of your career. You don't necessarily know where you stand, you know? So it's quite good to even enter a few classes and you might get an idea. Of course, there's different conditioning requirements for some of these classes. Men's is actually quite easy because it's like you have to just be big and shredded for all of them, of course. So it's not so much that, but it's the posing element, and then it's where does your structure and where do your strengths lie. Whereas there is some people doing kind of, I guess, figure and bikini, you could argue is somewhat similar conditioning, but the muscularity is kind of the difference there, the shape.
Yeah, I
So
think that I wouldn't say I would differ in my opinion, but I would just say that sometimes, again, the difference between bikini and figure or and other classes can be quite um can sometimes be quite distinct. And so, like, whilst I think it's good to do different classes, you I think you should get an idea from your frame which class you should compete in. Again, bikini and figure, the shape and the structure is a little bit different. So I would have thought, like, I don't know. Yeah,
yeah, I just think when you're first doing it, you might just not know, or you might not have quite the development for some of those classes. Like there's some girls here who they have good structure for figure, but the development is why they're not placing as high like these ladies here. It's not that their structure is poor for figure, I don't think, but our winner just was very standout with her muscularity there, if that makes sense. But yeah, becomes clearer as you progress through and forward. Like here was
definitely.
the winner of Fit Body, and she did
Hmm.
bikini and didn't place as highly. Like she placed behind
Mm,
other competitors, of course. And it just goes to show like she's a fit body competitor, less so well made for the bikini class. And I think that's just due to proportions and structure, most of all. Yeah, this is the first body fit body first timers, which she did very well. Nice. Is that it
cool.
for that element of the show?
I think pretty much, yeah. I think kind of
Okay,
we've talked a lot.
great. Here we go. That all worked, hopefully. Okay, we were talking for half an hour on that. I wish we had more. I wish we had every class, and then I could give everyone a bit of time and attention versus just the winners there. But at the moment, that's the best I can do, unfortunately, for you guys. I do actually have photos on my had them on my phone at least. I shared them to the hypertrophic time chamber so they could see all the winners in there. But really, you want to go into each person and dive into their physique and kind of talk through the class. But hopefully that was somewhat insightful for people and you got a good idea of the standard that is coming to stage. Obviously, one thing I will highlight is we just looked at the winners basically. They're the like cream of the crop. And like I said, that men's physique winner, arguably pro level standard. So very, very good.
I would have said all all of them would have got an invite to the Supernaturals, so it'll be interesting and cool to see if they do come to the Supernaturals and yeah, what happens there.
Yeah, it's a tough one to navigate, isn't it? Because if you haven't come in 100%, that's one thing. But
Mm,
if you've come in 100% for this show, and then when's the Supernatural? September?
yeah,
So
13th.
it's quite a long time. We've got like July, August. Yeah, good amount of time to have to try and hold a physique. And I would say some, like the bikini competitor, probably figure as well. The men's physique guy, like they're in like 100, they're basically 100%. I would say there is condition. What can you do in this time? You can either get more conditioned or like you haven't got much choice. Someone like Mikey, it's sort of the bodybuilding's one of those ones where it's like you can never be too conditioned, right? So you can always peel off a little bit more. You obviously don't know how much they've taken off and how long they've already been dieting. There's not quite enough time though to like take a break and then dig again, depending on your timelines. It's a tricky one to navigate between the two.
Yeah, I guess
Lots of people
if
do it. It's unfortunate if they come in worse for the supernaturals due to being so beat up.
yeah, it's it's that fine line, isn't it? Because do you try to hold it and then maybe you've got a bit of a fatigued look to your physique, which isn't great, or again, is it maybe just not quite as peaked? And again, it's a roll of the dice, and maybe you get lucky and maybe you just nail it again. It's kind of one of those three options, and it's a delicate balance, I think.
Yeah, in my head, if I was playing, trying to play my cards right, if I was thinking of like Finn with Mikey, I'd be getting him in at like 90, 95% of the way there. Peel off the last few layers after over the next like month, basically, very, very slowly and carefully, and then try and like do a progressive linear load over several weeks of just almost reverse dieting into the supernaturals to hopefully bring about the most full peaked conditioned physique. But that everything has to line up well, and also the physique has to allow for it, because sometimes you just, especially as a first timer and novice competitor, again, you've got no experience of this, so it's all new territory. So it's a tricky one. It's a real tricky one to navigate. So I do feel for those that are very ambitious about going to supernaturals but kind of feel a bit like a duck out of water for it. But yeah, I do encourage people, if they're feeling good for it, like do it, especially for those who came to this maybe knowing they weren't at their best and they feel like they've got more to give and they got that invite, like do it for sure.
Yeah. And because I think it's the Supernaturals is going to be at the Grove Theatre again. This I say again, as in say it's the same venue as the first timers, and it's going to be a 2-day event, the Supernaturals. So, which I think is going to be really exciting, really interesting. So, yeah, again, you've got this opportunity. You're at you've dieted, you've prepped, sort of thing. You're here more or less. Take the experience and have it.
On that note, I was talking with Finn McNamara. Sorry, Finn, for being terrible with your last name. And he posted this gym. Oh, damn it! I haven't got a. He basically there's an epic gym. I think he said it's like 5 minute walk away or something. He said 1 mile
Really?
from the venue. So
No way.
yeah, yeah, we're gonna. I
We're
think we
going
might have
there.
to go there. Yeah, it's really useful actually it being in Luton or Dunstable. My family live were based in Harpenden, so we could stay over the night there. And also, I'm
Brilliant.
imagining these are going to be relatively shorter days, so they might start at a similar time, but I imagine they're going to end a little bit earlier. So I think there's got to be the opportunity to train after like on the Saturday there. I imagine
Yeah, I think so.
might be
That's
a bit
exactly what went through my
tiring,
head.
but it'll be nice to be in a different environment. Yeah, if it finishes at like I don't know 4 or 5, then it should be good to like get a training session in, get a good feed in, and then hit the hay. Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. Oh, this is exciting. It's
I'm
very
excited for
exciting.
it. It did you find also? when you go to these events, it makes you want to compete.
Yes. And do you know what? Actually, I didn't get that bug quite last year, but this year like I got the nibble. I got the nut. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I was like, yes. So yeah, it is definitely. It always does. Did it you?
Yes. Yeah, you could inevitably end up thinking, oh, how would I be looking under there? Like, oh, I want to hit some shots now. And yeah, it definitely made me just be like, yeah, I want to get back up there. But it's one of those where you're also abundantly aware of the high level of talent that is there. And you're like, I don't want to go back on stage until I know I'm improved. And there's things you can do to improve. I think posing is one of those things that you can never be a good enough poser. So you can always
Mm.
improve your posing, but that's only going to take you so far. And I actually think it can take you quite far. But once you've got good, adequate posing, it can only take you so far. Maybe in classic, that's somewhere where it could really like you, if you, I don't know, were a bit less muscular, maybe had slightly worse symmetry, where your posing was like a 10 out of 10 and versus someone who's 5 out of 10, but they had those other elements, then you could go ahead of them potentially, depending on how the judges kind of fare it. But yeah, and like open bodybuilding, for me at least, it's like posing, it matters, but only to a certain degree. It's not like these other classes and like men's physique. It's part of the whole persona on stage and everything. So yeah, it's that was a really long answer, a long-winded way to say yes. I'm very excited to do so, and especially when I reflect upon my last season, and I just think there's things that I can do better, for sure, and bring a better look to the stage. And uh, yeah, yeah.
You learn about yourself and you learn what works for you. Again, like you realize, like, right, okay, this was where I took things a bit too far in terms of, conditioning or whatever. I know that this is where I look my best. And, every season you just get better and better because you just learn a little bit more about yourself. And that's what's so cool. And like you said, you improve, you build muscle mass, but those other little nuggets that you've learned from previous seasons, you get the chance to apply them once again. So yeah, it's awesome. And it probably won't surprise you, but I'm like, next time I compete, I definitely want to do classic.
Oh yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all.
No,
I
so it
assumed you were
won't
going to be
surprise
doing
you.
classic.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm like, oh, this is me. This is me. This is all me. I
Yeah, for
loved it.
sure. Yeah, you're already incorporating quite a bit of classic style posing into your bodybuilding posing, so it makes sense for you to go for classic. That's exciting though, and I know actually, again, if like classic and bodybuilding are separate, so like if you're a bodybuilding pro, you don't get a pro card in classic. You have to go win your classic pro card. So yeah, that's the only thing that interests me in like men's physique and classic is just the fact that earning like going down that route just to see if there's any way you could like be an amateur in something again and like enjoy that for a little bit too. But anyway, it's besides the point. Anything?
I think one interesting thing that is a kind of a seesaw in my head that I was going back and forth on. I think it'd be good to get your thoughts on is that, you know, the thing is, you can never be necessarily maybe improved enough. And because sometimes the argument that I've had in my head is that I'm just going to do another year and try and improve that little bit more. And it's like you get to the point where you're always just trying to convince yourself, like, oh, I'm just going to take one more year because I just need to make a little bit more progress. And you never end up competing. And it's trying to find that balance between taking sufficient time off to make progress, but also not just postponing it and procrastinating. And yeah, so I think that's just the balance I was kind of talking myself in my head. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do. It's funny. It makes me think of this analogy to training. So you have something like a barbell RDL. You're plugging away at the barbell RDL. It's going well. You're enjoying it. It's progressing slowly. And you're like, man, I've been doing this lift for 6 months. I kind of like it's going all right. The SFR is fine. It's still progressing. And maybe I should stick to it because like I'm in the groove and it's still providing results. But maybe I could just rotate it for something else and that might even be better. Maybe I'll enjoy it more. I'll be just psychologically more fresh and ready for things, and I could get some like better gains that way. And I think it's just one of those where it's like there's no wrong or right answer here. Both would be fine. And I think once you're thinking like that, you're thinking I've given enough time to this process to have been improved significantly. I think once you're already thinking like that, it's like if you're fancying a different variation, if you're fancying to take the stage and it makes sense for you that year, I'd say do it. Why wait any longer? You've given it sufficient time to have had significant progress with something. Rotate, go and compete. That's my kind of view on it. Why wait any longer? The difference of another year is not going to be like night and day. It's just going to be incremental, and I think there can almost certainly be benefits to also competing as well that you learn. Just like there is to getting a new novel exercise, you learn something else, or you hit the muscle slightly differently, and you then progress with that. I don't think there's a wrong or right answer necessarily, but I think if you've had 2 years between a season, that's when you're like, right, 2 years, and I've been dialed, I can compete anywhere now, like moving forward. Less than 2 years, I mean, certainly year to year, I'd be like, hey, cool it. Like you probably want to progress a bit more, unless you're at your peak, like you are, I don't know, in your mid to late 30s, mid 40s to, I don't know, maybe in your 40s, let's say that way, like you're at your peak, then more so compete each year, compete every other year, that sort of thing. But I think earlier than that, anywhere 2 to 4 years. That was a bit of a ramble where did that analogy make sense of changing an exercise?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think, and
I
yeah,
get that with exercises all the time where I'm just like, oh, I should just stick with it. It's going fine. I'm like, and then sometimes I rotate it. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm so glad I rotated it.
definitely. I think, like you said as well, you just learn just through the process itself. You learn new things that you might not learn through just being in an improvement season all the time. Um, whether that's just as an example, just resetting your intensity. Like you just realized you had to be so dialed in for your prep. You realize like, I probably could be more dialed in when it comes to my improvement season. And it's just those sorts of things where it just gives you a different perspective, which is just valuable in and of itself, which you might not have gained if you'd have just done a continuous improvement season. And I think for me at least, we always talk about that middle ground between like, hey, you want to get a good outcome. Everyone's competitive to a degree, but then also you are doing this for yourself at the end of the day as well. And we've just looked at all the winners of the first timers who are just like epic. And it's like, hey, a lot of us, who've even competed multiple times in the past, we might not be at their level necessarily. Um, but that's why we've always got to do it for ourselves, number one. And just try to just be better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, that's great feedback also for anyone listening who was at the show. Yeah, just really good feedback. It's what I said. I was just like, hey, everyone who attended, you did fantastic. Like anyone who stood on stage, like that's commendable in for itself. Don't let me as a judge determine your value. Your placing determine your value. Your value should be in your process and what you felt about the experience. But I can see why you might be tempted thinking about the way you line that up to compete next year.
Maybe, but not next year. It's going to
Okay.
be, I think, yeah, I think it's going to be 2027.
That's the year I'm looking at. I just think I think for me, again, taking the whole of this year off and next year, I think it's just such a, like, I'm like, after those 2 years of, both of us are just, we're fucking all in. Like, if it
Hmm.
isn't obvious to the listeners, if it isn't obvious from onlookers, like, we give this everything we possibly can. If you've done that for 2 years between seasons, I think there's just no way you're not going to come improved. And if you're not improved, then it's like, well, what else could you have done? You didn't just give it a year, you gave it 2 years and you did everything you could. And you'll have had three
Exactly.
years.
I'd have had four.
Oh, shit, has it been four? Damn,
Yeah,
yeah. So
it
you're
will be
definitely going
four.
to be a completely
No,
different Mike.
I think so. I think I've told you a few times now recently, but it's just been really nice just to see better shape. And like, I know that, like, just from how I'm looking right now, that, hey, there's been some tissue here. there's some decent tissue. So I am excited. I am really excited actually. But like you said, I think you come back to the process. I think you appreciate what you're seeing in the mirror, but you've got to remind yourself that what I'm seeing right now is the result of my processes of what I've done to date. And actually, if I can just keep focusing on that, everything else will just keep coming. It will just keep coming. And if I can even refine on my processes even more, because I know that I can still get the processes even more refined in terms of, being more consistent with my sleep, which for me is always just something that I'm continually like just working on. It's like, hey, if I can refine my process, then yeah, it's just going to keep coming.
Yeah. And I mean, we're at that point where with so many of the fundamental basics nailed, obviously, it's like I say to you, Mike, sleep it for everyone is an ongoing like thing that people have to work on because it's just so easy for it to take a backside, I don't know, be second. It's something you have to actively do, and you don't necessarily see the negative consequence immediately. I don't think there's anyone who's just like, I don't know, they sleep in a what's the back to tank? They're just like, yeah, I just go into this back to tank every night at 8
Yeah.
p.m. and I wake up at, I don't know, 6 a.m. and I'm 100% amazing and sleep was perfect. Like, you have hot days, like, we've got a heat wave now in the UK that can impact your sleep. Your dog barks or your neighbor's loud and so you have to stay late at work. Like, it's a constant thing you have to work on. But the fact is, you're always working on it and you're aware of it. So I think that's what makes you kind of like that person who's always trying to be 100%. And then we learn stuff about the process and how good we are at enacting the process even, or even new data comes out. For example, the length and partial stuff, that was like a huge thing. And obviously it's kind of people have, I think some people took it to an extreme and thought it was like, oh my God, it's the best thing since sliced bread. And I think we rationally knew it wasn't going to be a game changer. People have been getting huge for a long time and maybe already doing things that were enacting a length and partial, like using momentum to get it short, so on and so forth anyway. But those little things that we're always staying on top of are going to help us be our ultimate best. One final question for you, Mike, or I might have more than this, but this is a question I think people will be thinking if they're not, hey, any reason not next year? Because it sounded like you were like, next year is just a no.
For that very reason of I've had in my head 2027 for a while because I felt that I've got such good momentum at the moment and I do want that just a little bit of extra time to build a bit more mass because yeah, like I said, so far this year in 2025 I felt so good in terms of training momentum and I would just like one more year, just like if I can have a full like a year like this year, maybe even slightly better. Like, man, I just think that could be so cool. And I'm not so desperate to compete that I'm like, I must compete next year. And I think, man, just one more year, I think could make the difference. And then I'm going to set myself a hard cap of 2027 so that I'm not then just postponing it and giving myself an excuse.
Love that. Yeah, I think just as obviously we have ranges for optimal protein intake. I think a range for like optimal competing is 2 to 4 years. I think that's a great range for most people. If you're doing more than four, like it's like, have you just not been dialed in? But if you've been dialed in 4 years, amazing. If you wait longer than that, it does start to become like, I don't know, it's so long since you've done that process. They can come a bit foreign. You can almost make yourself worse, I
Mm,
think. So, yeah, that's very exciting. It's going to come in no time as well, because even though we say 2027, that means starting like your process. Well, it's always continuous for us, right? But it's like pre-planning all of that back end of next year. So, yeah,
exactly.
that's exciting. Should we get to some
And
questions or
let's
anything
get
else?
to some questions.
Okay.
We've got quite a few questions, haven't we?
Yeah, we have
There
two from
wasn't
last
anything.
time.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you what the first one, and then I'm going to go for my usual pee break. So, and hopefully, guys, that was interesting and useful. And I should say it now. If you want to ask questions, and I realized this, Mike, in the description, I link to the Hypertrophic Time Chamber, which is my broadcast group on Instagram where you can ask questions. I realized that link was broken. So I am going back into old episodes and editing it so you can click it. Basically, I pasted it and it then was right next to thank you and subscribe. And so if you clicked it, it killed the link. So now that link should work. It's one of those things. Anyway, yeah, so you can join and you can ask in there. Progress Forwards asks, How would you handle a weight loss phase for a client whose work schedule changes every few weeks and sometimes has to do night shifts?
Oh, good question. So I think from the perspective of, if we're thinking of we're going from day or morning shifts to night shifts, the main things I guess would be that, that might affect training, it might affect the days that you work, but and nutrition. Ultimately, we still want to keep we would still want to keep the person in a deficit. So the calorie deficit wouldn't necessarily change. The macros wouldn't necessarily change, in my view. It's more a case of doing fine tweaks in terms of when you're having your meals, when are we getting your training in so that you're sufficiently recovered, and managing things more from that perspective, in my view. And so that would be a very individual thing, and I would say so. We'd probably want to, again, depending on the days that you work, and depending on, the times, we might have, like, as you're transitioning from one shift to another, there might be like a day's break in between you training at a particular time to going to another time and moving to that. And again, from a training perspective, I don't think we might not necessarily need to change volume. We might not necessarily need to change frequency. So some of the broad things wouldn't change. It is just more those fine tuning things of, adjusting to the time of the day or night, adjusting your meals accordingly as well. But those broader things wouldn't change, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you answered that really well. It's a tricky one because the schedule changes that they're mentioning, they could be mild or they could be dramatic, and that might influence things. And my thought really comes down to a good coach sees what's in front of them and makes the changes according to what's in front of them. And that's kind of auto-regulation. And so it's kind of similar to me in terms of, I don't know, male versus female training. There's no like obvious fundamental differences in general. Women can handle more volume. As an example, their lower body is more of a focus, but it's like that isn't definite. You could have a woman who really wants to get jacked up a body and has a really stressful lifestyle, can only train 3 days a week. And suddenly it's like, oh, well, like it doesn't matter the sex actually of the individual. It depends on their goals and how their physiology is and how it's responding in front of me. So it's kind of similar here. It's like you would just manage things talking and communicating well to your client. And that's how you would get the best from it. I think that's something that we do really well is on signing up with our client. When a client signs up with us, we get them to give us what a average day to day looks like. So they fill out like a from morning to nighttime, what are you doing at various times for an average day? And then that allows us to put ourselves in their shoes. And so then they could have like a, don't know, A schedule, B schedule, C schedule, and have these different days. And it's like, okay, so we want to fit these fundamental principles, just as Mike said, of like protein feedings and nutrient timing recommendations, and then, okay, calorie deficit. But hey, just like if you're only training 3 days a week, maybe you put a bit more food on those days, all else being equal, and have a bit less on the other days. So if you have like harder, depending on the job and the schedule and what you're doing, but if you had busier weeks at work and you're maybe on your feet a bit, maybe you up the food a little bit on those, and then you decrease it on others. But you really just have to, it all comes back to that kind of communication with the client and ultimately long-term average of, like you said, get back to that like required volume, required energy deficit, or what have you. So in terms of the night shifts though, the immediate thought that comes to head is tell them to not do them because they're terrible for your health and for bodybuilding, which is, I hate saying it because I know there's people that listen that probably have night shifts and it's like, hey, I've got to make a living and it's part of my job. And I'm like, I get it. But that doesn't get around the fact that it's not good for you,
Mm.
unfortunately. And then you just have to do your best. And again, it comes back to whenever I talk to Greg about clever ways to, if I have had a terrible night's sleep, he's just like, just get back to plan. It's similar like flexible dieting. If you screw up one day, don't try too hard to make up for it. Depending on the scenario, just get back to plan. Like get your good sleep when you can. So your sleep's going to be impacted negatively with the night shift. There's nothing special that you can really do to make up for that. It kind of is what it is. But if you get great sleep the rest of the time, when you've got a less busy schedule, nail it. And then when you can't nail it, you can't, but it's okay because you did your best. So yeah. Anything to add?
No, not really. Again, just that final point of like, again, it's kind of comes back to averages, just like you'd aim for, as long as you're within your weekly average nutrition wise. Um, and it's the same in a way, it's kind of with sleep. It's like, all right, if a day's off just because of life circumstances or something outside of your control, right, don't stress about it, but let's just aim for the weekly average, and so that you're making up for it on another day when more factors are aligned in your favor and things like that. And that's the final thing that I'd add.
My only annoying point on this is sleep's one of those things, where it doesn't like you can't average 8 hours of sleep like by getting like 4 and then doubling it on other nights uh, and getting 4 more hours. It doesn't quite work like that because of the circadian rhythm aspect of like similar wake and bedtimes. And you actually probably find even if you try and sleep in, often you can't, not at least as much as you would like to. But you might get deeper, higher quality sleep. All that to say is sleep regularity is quite important. But that was a side point. I know your message still remains, especially for calories. Taking
Mhm.
calories to an extreme is probably not ideal either. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. Sorry, Mike.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But let's go on to the last question on this section. So RS_strength 413 asks, what are some of the biggest challenges you see with new athletes competing for the first time?
Great question. Wow. Lots of challenges.
Hmm.
Let's think. What's the most common challenge? I'd say, in my experience, the most common challenge is the self doubt that creeps in. So as they're getting towards the stage, they're like, I'm not going to be lean enough, especially in those like final weeks because they're not lean enough yet, but they're losing slowly because you need to be because they're actually quite lean and their physique changes dramatically on a week to week basis, but they're not necessarily seeing it. And it's like the whole thing is a foreign journey, but particularly the last steps of that journey are the most foreign and the most like you're uncertain. And also you get all the symptoms of psychological fatigue and like all of what that brings in. So that self doubt, I think, is the hardest thing. So it's reassuring them that we have things under control. I'm your coach. Let me stress about the process. You just do the process, please. And if you have full faith in me, then you should have full faith in what you're going to bring to stage. And tell them I'm always going to be honest. If I think you're off or I think we need to up our game, I'll always tell you. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest challenge I see new athletes face most often is that self doubt. How about you, Mike? What do you see?
I think my head went more to just the logistical challenges of because they've never gone through the process before themselves, they can't know like some of the like they they can't know how to manage themselves, if their class doesn't go on time, or tanning, or how the fitting of certain things. I think from a logistical aspect, there are just certain things they're never going to know because they've not gone through the process yet. But as soon as they've gone through it, they'll be fine. So I think it's that more logistical element as well that I think's a big challenge, which to a certain degree they can't overcome because they've just literally got to do in order to find out what works for them.
That's so interesting. That's where your head went. I'm glad that it was very different to mine. The other route I was thinking to go down, but I think it's very individual. I don't think it's first timer specific, is post show. But I will say post show generally just gets better and better every time you compete. But it's quite individual, that part. Some people struggle more than others. But yeah, the logistics, great answer.
And in a way, it's also pre-show because they say, being able to handle contest prep, being able to diet, it does get easier with time because you learn to manage yourself. You learn to know that, hey, this is this hunger or this feeling of fatigue. I know it's going to come, but I know I'm going to be okay afterwards as well. Kind of again, similar like going hard on a leg press or something. It's like, hey, I know this is going to be hard, but I also know that I'm going to survive and it's going to be fine. And I just need to, give it my best and know that it will pass.
What's that saying? Experience cures anxiety, or it's exposure therapy, right? Uh,
There
Next
you go.
question.
Well, we're on to the new section of questions.
Yeah, so this is from Progress Forwards again, but it's had the most upvotes, which is cool that it does that. So they asked, so if people don't know, you can upvote things and we do go through them in order. So we'll select those first. What are some beliefs you have about training slash nutrition that aren't backed by science? At the moment, at least.
Good
Gosh,
question. Um, Very good question. What are some beliefs I have about training or nutrition that aren't backed by science? I do you know what? I honestly don't know. Um, I'd need time to think about that a little bit. And I had a few days to be fair, but I've not seen the question. I
I haven't
honestly
looked at
don't
these
know.
either.
I honestly couldn't say.
I'll go
Um,
through some that I think aren't for sures within science. So I would say these are like, okay, right, Steve, say it. My muscle connection. There
mhm.
is mixed opinions on whether or not that's a thing or important for hypertrophy. I think there's something to it. I think there's got to be something to it. It's like we had that whole discussion about it. Is it overrated? I think if you cannot contract a muscle well, you're just not going to be able to use it well within exercises and you're going to recruit something else. I don't know if you've ever seen this, Mike, but you'll see those guys, normally guys, it might happen with women too, but they have huge teres majors and their lats will be like, huh? Where are
Mm.
those? And that's because they just do all their pulling with their teres major. They do not connect with their lats at all. I just think there's something to that. And I don't know if it's specifically what most people think about my muscle connection, but I definitely think there's something about you need to connect with muscles. And that's why I think there may even be some literature that's shown like posing has enhanced people's like bodybuilding results because when you can pose, it's like, well, if you can flare your lats from the front, you have a good connection with your lats. But if you can't do that, can you really connect with them? I don't know. And I've also seen it, you've probably seen it too, Mike, where I actually think of a client immediately off on the top of my head. He may be listening. He has very overdeveloped upper back, his traps and things like this. When he does like a rear double bicep, he's all pinched up here, his scapula's elevated, and he can't quite open up. I think it's because he hasn't, and his lats are underdeveloped compared to his upper back. It's because he hasn't quite connected with that muscle just yet. So yeah, I'm going to leave it with my muscle connection. I was thinking about maybe like pumps and think like you could also argue that's not backed by science so much and things like this. But yeah, I can't think of anything immediately now.
Can I just add something onto that point? Because more from a physio perspective, and I was thinking about this recently. So I also think that mind muscle connection, like you said, it's a skill that you have to practice and consciously think about when you're doing it. Because the body, certainly in the physio world, we tend to say that the brain and the body thinks in terms of function rather than, oh, I'm going to activate this muscle. So if you think, right, I need to walk to that door, I need to open the door and walk through the door. It doesn't think, right, activate your glutes, then activate your calves. It just thinks, right, walk through the door. And it will use whatever muscles are ready to go. And that can be, from a physio perspective, sometimes that can lead to dysfunctional movement patterns. So if you think you've had an injury, and then like your body thinks, right, I need to walk through that door, but hey, the body's got an injury, so it can't use certain muscles because they've become inhibited due to different reasons. So rather than using the right muscles, like maybe the calf, it might use something else. And then we get into a dysfunctional movement pattern. But so again, my point is that like mind muscle connection is a skill. It isn't something that just automatically comes all the time. And I think it's just something we have to practice. And if you can practice it, I agree. I think that that can lead to better development of that muscle in the long term.
Nice. That's actually really interesting, Mike. I think that's a great addition. Uh,
Cool.
your next
Next
question,
question.
yes.
Kim May 2018 or KMW May 2018 asks, how worried should I be when training if I'm still sore from the previous session? Is there an acceptable level of soreness? How can I tell?
So I would say you don't have to be worried. It's again emotions. It's like being scared of being hungry. You don't need to be scared. You don't have to be worried. But having some soreness is probably a sign of some muscle damage. It's not definitely, that's kind of something that's a little bit up in the air. Is it muscle damage? Like, what is it? But I think it's probably a sign of something's not quite recovered, right? I think we can at least say that. But I would say it's not necessarily a problem. And I think it's something you can auto-regulate. There is a level of, I've actually done an infographic on this before where it's like soreness level, like low to high. I think if you get to a level of soreness where basically, oh, saying I'm not connected.
Yeah.
It's reconnected. I'm back. I don't know what
It,
happened.
it
But
didn't pause.
good. So, yeah, if it's a level of soreness where basically you have to go out of your way to feel it, like, you know, you're sore, but you have to like really tense that muscle and like really push on it. And like, you wouldn't know it was sore if you were just sat down. It's probably a level where if you warm up, you get some blood flow, you forget that it was even sore. It may even enhance like a mind muscle connection if it's a little bit sore. Sometimes it can, and it doesn't impact performance. I'd say that's like acceptable. You can train through that. Keep a note of it. If it keeps happening, then you might want to modify the session before, the volume or whatever you're doing within the programming to lead to an excessive amount of stress in that where you're not recovered in time. But if it's a level of soreness where it's like you're sat there and if you just tense the muscle a little bit, it's like ow, or you touch it and you're like, ooh, that's like tender to touch. You can pretty much guarantee as you're warming up, it's just going to feel all sorts of wrong as you warm up. Even walking around or doing various activities, it probably feels uncomfortable. That's where I'm like, your performance probably isn't going to be good, and I'm not sure you should train on top of that level of soreness. So they're kind of my like two ends or kind of two levels of soreness where I'm like, hey, especially if it's going to impact performance, don't train. If it's like not obviously sore, just a bit tender, you warm up and you think performance is going to be just fine, you're probably just fine. I don't know how you think about it, Mike. I haven't had that level of the previous level of soreness for so long, by the way, like where I'm sore, like just prodding a muscle. I can't remember the last time that happened.
I've got memories, but they're old
Distant.
memories.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I to be honest, on the whole, I would largely agree. I would say, you don't need to be worried. Um, but that just use this as feedback for, your sessions and your recoverability because outside of, right, first and foremost, was the exercise or was the session very novel? Okay, you can put it maybe a bit more down to novelty. If it's not so much novelty and you're still not recovering on time, there's a level of soreness that's like, right, what's this telling me about how I'm programming at the moment or my program in general that I might need to modify a little bit to make sure that I am recovering on time so that I can at least perform and get a quality training session in the next time. And it might not even be that. Maybe it's just a scheduling thing as well. Maybe it's a short-term lifestyle stress that led to your recovery being inhibited or whatever. So, I would also just treat all of this as feedback. That's going to just help you get better in the long term.
Nice. Next
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Mandy Lay Beauty has asked, my hamstrings are very sore after leg day. I have progress in that area, but not as fast as others. Would this suggest needing less volume?
Potentially. Um, Again, like from the way this question is worded, it sounds like you've been working your hamstrings for quite a while. So again, it's not like you need time to adjust to anything. So I would experiment. I legitimately would experiment. I would drop your volume and I would say like, hey, are you still able to progress? Are you able to recover on time? Does that help you recover on time and get better performances and a higher quality of training? And if so, great. So I think, n equals one. This is the perfect time to experiment. I would say give it a go and see what happens.
I think experimenting is a great answer. My first thought goes to just because of the number of people I've had consultations with and have this sort of discussion with, is she says it's progressed, but not as fast as other areas. My thought goes to how you're assessing that. Are you sure you're assessing that well? Just because, and nothing against Mandy at all, like maybe she has a really good answer there. And what I would be looking at is like the way you measure muscle growth, like circumference measurements visually, and then like strength increases. They're really the best tools we can have as naturals. But a lot of the time when people say this, it's just a feeling they have. You know what I mean, Mike? They're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm progressing very well. And then you ask them, like, are you measuring any variables to know how things are going? And they're like, oh, I haven't, my chest hasn't grown in a year. I'm like, how do you know? Like, yeah, I'm very skeptical when people say these sort of things. But I think basically from the sounds of it, with what she's saying, she's like, hey, it's not, let's say it isn't progressing as fast. It seems like it's not like as well recovered as other muscle groups. So maybe it's a sign that less is appropriate. And I think volume is one of those things that you can dial up or down within reason and just see, do I get more results from dialing it up or less results? If all things being equal, like I'm recovering on time, I feel good, that sort of thing. Because if she had said, my hamstrings are sore and I'm sore for my next time I train hamstrings and they're not progressing as fast as other muscles, I'd be like, well, this is just what we spoke about in the question before. But them getting sore after a leg day isn't a bad thing at all, so long as they're recovered for the next session. So there's no definitive answer. But I think coming back to what you said, experimentation is something you can't fail at. Like, no risk in just dialing it down and seeing how things go.
And by the way, I just thought that was such a great point, because I think that we can all have a bit of if we haven't got objective markers to legitimately show us, like, are we making progress or not in different fields, then we don't really know, because we are so biased and have got an emotional lens with which we're viewing things. We could be making tons of progress, but we're just not seeing it because we've got a bit of an emotional bias going on. So I think that's such a good point. And the only other thought that came through my head is, it might actually just be, again, particular exercises that are driving the majority of the soreness. So again, lots of people can experience a ton of soreness from hip hinging. So leg curls might feel fine. So it might be that maybe you're just doing a bit less volume for hip hinges, or you're just having them on your own. But broadly speaking, leg curl movements, knee flexion movements, like, hey, maybe you just keep them the same. Maybe you just kind of like sort of like dial each a little bit differently. So yeah, there's lots of options.
You still don't really get that sore from hip hinging, right? No.
Nope.
I really don't either. So I'm always jealous when people get this like very predictable soreness from hip hinge. I'm like, man, I just have never got that. When
Mm,
I do back extensions for the first time, I'll get sore the first time I do them, but then I don't anymore. It's similar to like ab rollouts. I'll get quite sore the first time I do them, but then after I've done them like for a couple of weeks, it starts just going. So soreness is such a what's the word? It begins with an F. I can't think what the word I want to say is, but it's fleeting for us anyway.
mm.
I can't think of the word. Last question, maybe?
Yeah. So our man Dr. Jared Rice, he asks, knees are getting achy on squat patterns. Other than changing exercises, what can I do to improve knee health?
This is for you, Mike. Okay, immediate thoughts. Knees are getting achy on squat patterns. Other than changing exercises, what can I do for knee health? My immediate thoughts go to, like, there might be nothing you need to do aside from, like, what's your warm up like? I kind of think about that. See if doing some, like, knee extensions, leg extensions can be helpful to, like, warm up the knee. Maybe even wearing some, like, light fitting knee sleeves to, like, get that area warm. See if that helps at all. Then I would say looking at things like, it could be as little as like range of motion. Maybe you're going a bit too deep. You're going to ranges that are uncomfortable. Possibly tempo. If you're bouncing out of the hole, that might not be ideal. Bouncing off the ligaments and tendons, that could lead to some discomfort. Possibly, like, therefore slowing down the tempo or putting a pause in that bottom position, particularly. You can also play around with like stance width, that sort of thing. The amount of toes pointing out or in, that might even be helpful for you. Mm, then I don't know if at the moment my brain's gone dry, so I'll hand the mic over to you, Mike.
I think, like, I totally agree with all of those suggestions, and I would say if Jared has exhausted all of those options, I think one other thing that we didn't mention is experimenting with rep ranges versus load, rather than going like lower rep range, high load. Opt for um, higher reps, because just for the same reason that you mentioned regarding warm ups, is that, right, there's probably a little bit less overall load going through the knee, and actually it just gives it a chance to just lubricate and warm up that little bit more. So I think, that's a really good additional modification. In terms of, I guess, more rehab specific, if there's something like, a tendon irritation, a tendon issue, then things such as isometric holds, again, as part of a warm-up, can be really beneficial. Isometrics have been shown to have analgesic properties, as well as having kind of like a slight tendon remodeling effect. So as part of maybe a bit more of a rehabilitation prep, that could be included. And I think, other than kind of changing the movement pattern, again, you could also, there is, from a pure rehabilitation perspective, things such as just general more eccentric biased work, but that's a bit more overloading. And the evidence between pure eccentrics and just heavy slow resistance training, which is essentially doing exactly what we're doing, but a more, even slower tempo, which is what you mentioned, are equivocal. So I would say isometrics would be the only differentiating factor. Um, and yeah, and then in terms of knee health, just thinking in terms of more nutrition based, you could think about your general kind of other things such as, could you supplement with collagen? Could you supplement with, glucosamine or things of that nature, omega-3s, all of those additional, small percenters in addition to that could potentially maybe help.
Great points. The only two things I have in addition to that was obviously dialing back volume would be one thing that you could definitely do that isn't specific to anything that Jared mentioned. And then BFR, for example, but that would be
Great
part
one.
of like lower load basically. But BFR, like, they're gnarly and you could use such little load. And then I think most often it happens where people are really trying to exaggerate knee extension, so they're trying to get their knees really over their toes. So sometimes going for just like a higher foot position on like a leg press, or doing like a reverse lunge, it just puts less pressure through the knee joint for a little bit of time. Actually, I think he said uh, except changing exercises, so that would be changing an exercise. Anyway, should we get to just one more question, because I think this one's going to be pretty quick.
Let's do it.
So BME asks thoughts on if there was a classic women's division. I have some
Cool.
immediate thoughts if you want me to answer.
Go. Yeah, yeah, go.
I just don't think it's necessary. I think there's already enough women's classes, to be honest. I wouldn't personally like to see another class really thrown in there. I think there's enough difference between, we already have like figure, you could almost argue, or you could say fit body is like the classic. I don't see where classic would be different enough within those for it to make sense at the moment, for me personally.
In my head, there isn't a really iconic, like, classic era for women's physique. So it's kind of like, in from my memory, women's bodybuilding really came to the forefront kind of in the 80s. But even in the 80s, there wasn't like classic women's poses as such in bodybuilding. And so I can't see how that would kind of fit, into like a classic bodybuilding category. I think, like, the different poses just naturally flow with what we've got now with, fit body and figure and bikini. I think they really just encapsulate the different ways of showcasing a woman's physique or women's physiques. So yeah, I agree. I don't think a classic division would add anything. What era, what kind of thing are we trying to replicate and model here? So I think I'd need to see it. I'd need to see the good example for someone to kind of, convince me otherwise.
Yeah, typical that natural classes come from the like IFBB, right? It kind of comes down like wellness, classic, even men's physique probably all came to then the natural side. So probably need to see it there done well first. But I just can't see it really making it. Already is arguably like, some people could have decent arguments to say natural bodybuilding is classic bodybuilding. I think that
Hmm.
argument maybe even more so holds for the female side, especially because, and one of the concerns with classic within the WNBF, I think, is that it would wash out the bodybuilding open category. And In the female side, well, the weekend just gone speaks for itself, where we only had two. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't like to see less in there. So if you want to, if B wants to be like embrace like a classic side of bodybuilding, do it, but just be in open. You're a great bodybuilder there. At least that's my kind of thought on it. But cool, guys. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you, Mike, for your time and for bearing with me as I was technically trying to get to grips with how I share my screen, given my situation here. But yeah, hopefully, guys, that was useful and you liked the screen sharing. If you did particularly like it and you liked us like reviewing, don't know, whatever, like we can do that more often. And now know how to share my screen, and so we can review things, even down to like, I don't know, I'm just randomly thinking off. People could send in their physique and we could like review it for a category or
Yeah,
advise them what category they'd be suitable for. Like we could do stuff like that. So if people have any suggestions, let us know. Otherwise, I guess that's everything. You having a Ninja Creamy tonight, Mike?
I am having my Ninja Creamy, and it's been getting better, by the way. Your your advice last week really helped, so it's getting better and better each time. So I'm loving it.
What flavor are you using?
So I've still got the chocolate mint.
Yeah, because someone commented they're like, no wonder it's not great. You're mixing chocolate mint with banana or something, and I don't think I realized that's what you were doing.
But
It's not that
they
bad.
weren't. Yeah, there was one comment that said it tastes like toothpaste. I was like, oh, that's brutal. I don't
Some
think it's
people
that
don't.
bad.
Yeah, some people don't like mint in their chocolate. I'm a fan of chocolate
Oh,
mint, to be fair.
yeah. I'm a fan of chocolate mint, so it doesn't taste like toothpaste to me. But it tastes a bit like more flavorsome now. So yeah,
You haven't
much
tried the
better. I'm much
xanthan
happier with it.
yet, have you?
Not the xanthan gum, but I've bought some. So I
Have you? Nice.
literally, yeah. So I've bought more cocoa powder, peanut butter powder, and some xanthan gum. So
Ooh.
it's gonna be getting better.
Exciting. Good for this heat because we're having a bit of a, for us at least, heat wave in the UK. It's getting up like close to 30 degrees or mid 20s. It's quite hot. But anyway, I'll stop us rambling. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you. All the feedback is appreciated. All the questions are appreciated. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers.
See you later, guys.